Hi, Ayse. So you've started writing again. I'm very happy to see that. Let's see what you did with these two tasks. The graph illustrates the number of chip sales by two different producers, Intel and AMD, in France in 2017. In January, the sales of Intel doubled those of AMD with 50,000. Okay, that's not exactly true. You can't say that Intel doubled the sales of AMD. Instead, what you could say here is the sales of Intel were double those of AMD. Okay? Although there was a rise in the sale of both companies, AMD saw its highest figure in February with roughly 120,000. Intel and AMD showed the least difference between them in April, respectively at 30 and 40,000. As is shown by the bar chart, Intel enjoyed the best performance of sales S in June with around 125,000, while there was no chip sale. I would prefer there were no chip sales. We usually do this even when it's zero. We use the plural. For AMD, full stop. Following this sharp fall, the number of sales by AMD rocketed to 110,000 in July. However, the figure for Intel decreased dramatically and reached its lowest with 30,000. Overall, the trend of both manufacturers fluctuated over the year. The general pattern for Intel was upwards, whereas AMD ended the year at a similar figure ended the year at a similar figure, that's awkward. Whereas AMD ended the year with a figure similar to that of the beginning of the year. Okay, so you've got some nice data here, you've got some nice expressions, but it's like you analyze the first part of the year really in great detail, and then all of a sudden, after July, you just stop, and there's like 5 months left in the year. You tell me that they pretty much ended the year where they started, and that's good, but I have absolutely no image whatsoever about anything happening from August to November. And that's a big chunk of time. You should have had some sort of information. I mean, for example, you said that they fluctuated. Like, look at this. This is your overview, isn't it? Well, what about here in your details? I mean, you really needed to have some sort of information. You didn't include the image for me to refer to, so I'll just try to do it from memory. I can't really remember what the data is, but you should have at least said, for the remainder of the year, figures fluctuated between 50,000 and 110,000 for Intel, and 10,000 and 80,000 for AMD. Okay, even that gives me some sort of like a frame of reference, okay? So just because you analyzed this really in detail, it doesn't mean that you can just stop, okay? So you do have to provide some sort of information about the rest of the year, okay? Okay, let's move on. For school children, their parents have more influence on their intelligence and social development than their parents. To what extent do you agree or disagree? Okay. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether teachers impact the mental and social development of students more than their parents. This essay will discuss both sides using examples from the UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Fine. But they didn't ask you to discuss both sides. Instead, what they asked you is to what extent you agree or disagree. So do answer that here. Okay? You need to give the examiner a roadmap that, look, I'm going to discuss this issue from both sides, but you need to know from the beginning what my opinion is. Okay? And the best place to do that is in your introduction. Moving on. There is ample evidence that teachers can be more objective observing students' development. Okay. The central reason behind this is twofold. Firstly, undoubtedly most parents tend to be sensitive dealing with the problem of their offspring. Okay. Secondly, no, not secondly. You have to expand on this. Okay? Like, just something. Give me an example that, I don't know, if a parent uncovers that a child is having difficulty in math, for example, They might start running to every single specialist to see if the child has a learning disability, whereas a teacher might just approach the topic from a different perspective, thereby helping the child. Okay, that's an example. That's how you support this. All right, moving on. Secondly, teachers can interfere with the school children's problems immediately. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that nearly half of parents who have children with learning disorders, S, did not accept the situation at first, while their teachers assisted them about the conditions. It must not be forgotten that although children spend more time quantitatively with their parents, the most active and efficient time is occupied with their teachers. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that teachers have crucial roles in the development of their students. Okay, lovely. Although there is a case for teachers having, ing, an important impact on school children, the parenting factor cannot be overstated. This is largely because parental involvement makes a significant difference in a student's achievement. For example, an extensive study from Oxford University showed that 72% of students who have educational attainments, what does that mean, attainments, are supported by their families in schooling, while only 7% of those live, with a lack of interest in their families. That's not what you mean. You mean only 7% of those do not get any support from their parents for their academic goals. I think that's what you mean here. Consistent with this line of thinking is that children's intelligence and social interaction have been formed mostly until the school period. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt the effect of parents on children's development is tremendous. Okay, grammatically this is all fine. You really kind of confused me here. I think there was more you could have said. I think you could have really flushed this out a little more. How parents affect their children, in what other ways? I mean, think about the stimuli that parents give their children. You know, books and movies and theater and travel. So think about all these conversations, the communication that parents have, or the modeling of behavior that parents give. So a lot of this is really important. I think you could have said more about this. And I say that because I can see that you have the language to develop these kinds of ideas, okay? All right, moving on. From the examples and arguments given, I firmly believe that although teachers have a complementary role in children's overall development, parents are more responsible for their children being well educated. It is predicted that the impact of teachers will increase in the future. All right, that's interesting. I don't know why you would say that, since you feel that parents are more responsible. Maybe I think a more logical, just based on what you said in your conclusion, I think a more logical statement would have been, it is predicted that teachers and parents will cooperate more in the future in order to prepare children better for the future. Something like that, okay? So Ayse, you've got some really beautiful language, and the structure is great. You're doing a great job. I think that there's more you can say. I think you have the ability and the language to say more. So think about my comments. Think also what I said about task 1, because you were really missing a lot of data there, and that's very important. That would absolutely affect your task achievement score. So now you need to correct these essays, add to your error correction list, send these back to us with new essays, of course, as well. I'm here. I'm waiting for them. Okay, so happy writing, and I'm waiting to see what you write next. Good luck.